the draft of the management report that you have in your package is pretty self-explanatory. We've been doing revisions and considering some revisions to all of our incentive programs, and this is the first ones that we're bringing to you. Some of the revisions are housekeeping in nature, and I'm not going to run over those because they're fairly obvious. But I do want to highlight some of the more significant changes that we're suggesting to be made to the two programs. And then if you have any questions or comments, I'm glad to entertain them. I'll start with the Downtown Housing Incentive Program. As we know, that was created in January 2021. And all of our proposed changes are highlighted in red on the documentation that you have. So we'll move down to the first one under eligible projects. We've added the following: upgrades and improvements to prolonged vacant existing rental units may be considered under this program at the discretion of the Department of Economic Development and Tourism. This comes as a result of us being approached by developers who have purchased buildings that have been vacant for 2 or 3 years or 4 years, and they've completely renovated them and reintroduced them to the market. And we felt that it met the intent of the program to create new available units within the downtown residential catchment areas. And so the difficulty that we had was to, what is deemed to be a prolonged vacant building. And so instead of putting parameters on it in specific years, after discussion with the city manager, we came up with that particular wording, that it will be up to our discretion whether it meets that definition. Something that's been, we want to avoid the purchase of a building, kick somebody out for a month, and then come back and apply to us, for funding to renovate it. That's not the intent of this. The intent is that it has to be prolonged and off the market for a significant length of time. And we've had a couple of inquiries over the last couple of years from developers that had done that. So that's what we're suggesting there. Number 5, under that same section, the original document said that projects must not be underway prior to the acceptance of the incentive application. We have changed that to submission. The purpose behind that initially was to allow us to manage our budget more diligently by knowing what we had in the queue and knowing how much we needed that particular year. And we felt that as long as we had an application submitted, that gave us that information, and makes it a little bit easier for developers. For example, I have one like that right now where they've submitted an application, and I just received word yesterday, after about a year, that they finally crossed the final finish line and they're able to do the project. So as far as I'm concerned, they qualify because they've had that. Number 10, we've added that as a result of something that has been before council just recently. Projects within the defined business improvement area cannot displace nor replace existing street-level commercial units and will not be funded under this program. Again, the intent of the Downtown Housing Incentive Program is to create a critical mass of residents within a residential catchment area of the downtowns, and by displacing existing commercial space on street level, you're being counterproductive to that. So that was always the intent. It was never stated. Now it is. The next one down under eligible applicants: incorporated not-for-profit organizations, registered charities, and private for-profit corporations and businesses may, at the discretion of the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, be eligible to apply subject to Condition 1. Condition 1 being they have to have ownership in the property. The reason we added that was it gave us some flexibility for non-for-profits who wanted to create market downtown units that was going to show potentially no return to us, because registered charities, I shouldn't say not-for-profit, registered charities are eligible for tax exemptions, property tax exemptions. So we wanted some flexibility to allow us to take each individual application case-by-case basis, judge them objectively, and say, yeah, this is good, or no, it is not. Make the recommendation to council. One of the things that I have to stress on both of these programs, just as a reminder to you, these programs always, applications for these programs always come back to council for a final approval. we do not approve any of these, we just recommend them. So council always has the opportunity to make exceptions at any given point in time. On the application procedure, we've added that, and this is a very important step, contact with the City of Miramishee's Department of Economic Development and Tourism be the first step in the application process to discuss the program and determine pre-eligibility. We're stressing that. Instead of going through a whole process and saying, hey, you're not eligible, 5, 10, 20-minute meeting face-to-face or virtually will solve that issue right at the get-go. All projects under this initiative must have submitted a completed application prior to the commencement of the work. Again, it aligns with what was stated above. Under payment procedure, we eliminated the progress report at 80%. Quite frankly, it just became redundant and not necessary. Number 4, under that same section, we added upon completion, all projects must meet all conditions of the program. So what happens now is that each applicant, when they are sent a letter of offer, a copy of the program goes with it, and they're advised within the letter of offer that they have to meet that. So it's being consistent with that. Number 5, this wording again was put in place with consultation of the city manager, and it allows us a little bit more flexibility if the owner of a building decides to sell it during construction or renovations. The City of Miramichi may agree to the disbursement of funds being assigned to a new legal owner of the project, subject to the conditions of the original letter of offer, and further the signing of a new letter of offer with the new property owner. So it allows us the flexibility to still achieve the goals that we want of creating the downtown residential units, but if for some reason an owner decides that they cannot or will not complete the project and they decide to sell it, it allows us the flexibility to still deal with the new owner, just with a new letter of offer. So those are the changes to the downtown housing incentive program. Any questions on those?
Maybe not now, so maybe we'll proceed.
Okay. And just to stress, as I said in the management report, none of the dollar values are changing, or we're not recommending any changes to the awarded values. Next, the Affordable Housing Incentive Program. Again, that was created in March of 2021. We've eliminated the applications to be processed on a first-come, first-served basis. That's was pretty obvious that they are anyways. We clarified that projects must be located within the boundaries of the City of Miramichi. That was a little vague. The big one here is number 6. Number 5. Upgrades and improvements to prolonged vacant existing rental units may be considered at the discretion of the department. That aligns with what we did or what we're suggesting be done in the downtown one. Same reasons, long-term vacant properties being reintroduced to the market after some renovations. Number 6, again, the application has to be filed and not approved prior to the commencement of work. On the ineligible projects, we've added dormitory style and temporary student housing. We feel that that's not permanent housing. We also have discussed how we can address that. We haven't come up with a potential solution yet, but we're still working on it. How we can address, maybe trying to incentivize dormitory style student housing. We don't know what the answer to that one is yet. Number 7, again, if the project cannot displace existing commercial space within the BIAs, that's consistent with the downtown one. The eligible applicant, number 3, same reasoning I said before with the downtown one. All of what we've done in the application procedure, the changes we've made are just housekeeping. We've again eliminated the 80% progress report, and under audit procedures, we've completely revamped that paragraph to read: the applicant will be required to submit copies of any rental rate audit reports submitted by required by CMHC or social development agreements to the City of Miramichi as indicated in the letter of offer. And we've also added that the successful applicant shall maintain the affordable rent status for a minimum of 5 years. That was always implied but never stated, so we've done that. And those are the suggested changes to that program. Are there any questions on that one or the other one at the same time?
Thanks, Mr. McGrath. I'll say no questions from me, but just to say thank you for bringing this forward. It's nice after a couple of years to do some cleanup, and I think some of these adjustments will make them more user-friendly for the applicants, and that's always what we want to do too, is work with people and make it easy on them if they're going to be eligible. Yeah, so look forward to moving these forward. And I would say too, with the affordable program, I'm still hopeful that we're waiting to hear back from our housing accelerator application. We followed up. I followed up again today, actually, to see if we can get some information. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to secure that funding to potentially expand this one further or further revise it to include market affordable. But we know we have to see what happens with that funding before we can really enter into that conversation. So hopefully this will go through, and hopefully we'll come back and have another discussion with some federal funds in hand soon enough. Deputy Mayor Quinn.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I do agree with you. Great work there, Paul. It's nice to revisit documents like this and tidy and clean them up. One suggestion, and I suspect it's part of your plan, although it's not included here, in the area where you define downtown Newcastle Business District BIA and historic Chatham Business District BIA. That's pretty wordy. I might include a map for someone to have a look at if he or she is there. And I'm assuming it is. It's just not here.
To the chair, through to Deputy Mayor Quinn, the map exists on our Invest Miramichi website, shows the boundaries, and yeah, that was about as less wordy as I could make it and try to be specific. Yeah. And just to be clear, that these are not the boundaries of the BIAs. These are the boundaries of the residential catchment area related to each of the BIAs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor DePlacy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Paul, ineligible projects, number 5, transitional housing of all types. Looking, I guess, for like a definition, and just kind of like understanding like what would be the different types, or what are we precluding in transitional housing, given that we've already outlined hostels, rooming houses, dormitory. Kind of what are we safeguarding against with number 5?
Chair, through to Councillor DePlacy. Transitional housing is temporary housing. The intended goals behind both of these programs is to create permanent housing that is available to everybody unconditionally. Transitional housing is the most relevant one would be the housing that involves women under distress that are going from a shelter to a temporary, get your feet under yourself, 1 year, 3 months residency in a facility. The big thing under transitional is temporary. It's not going to be their permanent home. It's a stopgap. It's a place where they can regather themselves before they move into temporary housing or permanent housing over the long term. So it's there are examples. I can't get into the specifics without naming, and I don't want to name. But transitional housing is basically temporary housing. If the reason that someone is in there is just for a short period of time, that is not what the intent is here. Now, we have funded those on other programs, or the council has agreed to, or we have insisted that if you want use out of this, that you remove the temporary nature of it, and it has been done. But it's temporary is the difference.
Can you remind me, because I know the reference that you just alluded to, we did invest in that project at a tune of 80 grand, I think it was?
Yes, it was.
So how did that go through this program? Was that an exemption?
If I may, again, to the chair, through the chair to Councillor DePlacy, that was one of the delays in getting that particular project recommended and eventually approved from council, is that I wanted to see the guidelines for residency there, and there was no reference made to be it being temporary or having a specific timeline. Normally, it can run anywhere from 18 months to, I've seen one, in one example, as I recall, was 36 months. So there was no reference to it being temporary. So that was the difference, is that they were, and that was actually, initially that project that you're talking about, you're referring to, it was denied because of that until I saw, is it temporary, is it not? Because transitional housing of all types has always been in this, right from day one.
Yeah. I guess my questions are the merit of it being in it at all, given the additional details around dormitory housing, temporary student housing, hostels, rooming housing. But I guess you've answered my question. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Mr. McGraw. So if there are any further questions, of course, we'll entertain those. And if not, I suppose we would be looking for a motion to move this up for a vote. Councillor Ross Robinson will make that motion to move it up, seconded by Councillor King. On the question, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?